So for printmaking, first of course you'll get your print plate. So your image will be drawn into the styrofoam, marks made to show your textures and any details, cut away and made into your individual print. We'll have the paper you're going to print on. It'll be smaller, just slightly smaller than your print plate. I'll actually go this way because of the way that it prints. Scrap piece of paper, so when I do all of my inking I don't get the table too dirty. Then a couple other tools we're going to have is the ink. It is a block printing ink. It's water soluble, which means that we can wash it off in the sink. It's not oil. To get the ink out of the jar, we'll have what's called a palette knife. They can be all sorts of different angles and sizes, but we'll use this to spread the ink onto the plexiglass. Plexiglass is going to be just this really thick piece of plastic. That's where our ink is going to go and get spread out. It'll be spread out and applied to the print plate with a brayer. The brayer has this kind of foamy, really like rubbery, I should say, roller, and our ink will get spread around and applied to the styrofoam. And then last tool is called a burnisher. The burnisher is how we're going to kind of spread the ink evenly on the paper. So first thing, I need to make sure I have my correct papers ready to go and my ink colors are going to match. So I'm going to print with the silver onto this blue paper. Silver onto the blue. So I will take a bit of ink. There may be already some on the print plate, or sorry, on the plexiglass. So I'm going to take a little bit of ink and spread it across the plexi. Kind of spread it out just a little bit. And now the brayer is going to run through the plexi. So my goal is, if it's got this much texture, it's a little bit too thick. I want the ink across all of the rubber. So I'm going to go at kind of different angles, back and forth. And I still need a little bit more over here. And if I have too much, I can kind of run over here on the side, spread it out just a little bit. Now I can see, instead of those big thick stripes, I have just kind of little dots. That's kind of more the texture I'm going to go for. For some reason it's not picking some up in the middle. It'll spread out though. So I have the ink across the brayer. And then now I'm going to ink my flamingo, my print plate. And I'm going to run it right over. Pick up a little more ink. So it was beginning to run out of ink as I was pushing, so I'm just going to keep going. I don't want it too thick, and I want it spread all the way across. So I'll keep coming down the leg, off my edges. Kind of hard to move it without touching it. Ah. Again, it's water soluble, so if it gets on your hands, it will come off. Washes in the sink. Like that. I'm always going to leave the brayer so that the roller side is up, so it doesn't get any dirty anywhere. I'll flip it over like that. And then now I'm going to very carefully pick up my print plate. Kind of hold it from the outside edges. And I'll get another sheet of paper. And put my paper I'm printing on down. And when I flip it over, I need to be really careful when I set it down, because once it goes down, it's got to stay there. So I'm just going to hover across here, get it all lined up the way that I want, and drop. I'll just kind of run my fingers across. Now some of this silver got on here, so the back of your print plate's going to get dirty too, which is why I got the extra sheet of paper. Just kind of make sure it's sticking down. And then I'll flip my paper so the print plate is down. I just need a solid back of the paper and use the burnisher. So I'm just going to run in circular motions all across the back side of the flamingo, getting into all the edges and corners. You can see it's getting a little pink on there. That was just leftover ink from not getting washed from last time. I can peek. If I hold this down really well, I can lift up a corner and see how it's printing. If there's still a whole lot more to do, that's why I'm not going to lift it all the way up. I'll just set it back down. Apply a little more pressure. Maybe I forgot an area maybe the middle's getting ignored, you're on the outside edges, you forgot the middle, whatever it is. And pull away the flamingo. So there's the silver. We'll probably do 2 per color. So the fun thing about printing is you can get multiples. So there may be enough actually ink on here. I don't really need to add more. So I'll just use my brayer to pick up a little bit more block printing ink and start spreading it out. Oh, you know what I should do? Move back to this super dirty paper so I don't go through a ton of sheets of scratch paper. If you're beginning to run out of ink, I would just add a little bit at a time. The first time I added a bunch because I had a long ways to go, but now just a little bit more. Run through this angle, back through. If I have too much, I can spread a little more out over here. And try to get all the raised areas. The low areas are supposed to stay white because that's how you see the texture. Flip it over so the brayer side is up. I'm going to switch back to the more clean paper. I did that, not thinking right at the beginning. I'll just put it on there and carefully pick up my print plate, hold it from the edges, flip it over. Whoop, almost dropped it. That's why we're going to make 2. You might make a mistake on the first one. And lower it down. Once it's on, it's got to stick. Just not hit a couple areas to get it stuck on there. Starting to get a little bit of ink on my fingers, so if I get too dirty I should probably go wash my hands, and if I were to flip this over it's going to end up getting silver over here, so we may need extra sheets here. I'll do the back side of this one. And burnisher, run it all the way across. And there's 2. Only 2 silver ones. So at this point, this would have to get washed for the other color. I would need to get it washed and dry. Since it's water soluble, it's going to be super dried off before I get to start my second color. So if you have to use the wooden spoon, it works just like the burnisher, except it has this extra long handle here, unless I get this cut off. So I'm just going to put the palm of my hand right in here, or even just my fingers, and run it across, still circular, all the way to your edges, and no big deal. You use the rounded part, that will go down. This dipped in part of the spoon will be facing up, and works just the same as the burnisher. Cleanup, we will need to pitch in and help cleaning up. We'll get all the paint off of the palette knife and into the jar and scrape any extra ink that you can get up. Not a whole lot, but it also makes cleaning up a little easier if it's not on so thick. So scrape any extra up here. You'll each have different days that you are required to do different things, so need extra help on that. And what needs to get washed is these 3 items here: the brayer, the palette knife, and the plexiglass. The burnishers, if they get any paint on them, they'll need to be washed off. And then of course each of you need to get your print plate washed off so that you can make extra copies if you don't get all yours done in one day. As long as it's not bent, torn, broken, anything, you can keep on making prints and prints and prints and prints and prints. At the end of class, after you wash your print plate off, we'll put on a paper towel and store it till next time. Get it nice and dry on that paper towel, and we can slide it in the paper drawers, and then we'll have to get those sticky, wet print plates stored away. So make sure you're listening for where to get those, because they will take quite a while to dry. They'll just keep on transferring paint around until that gets all dried off. So make sure you get everything put away. Nothing can stack. Everything needs to be laid out separately.